The small town of Willow Creek was nestled in a valley where the mountains kissed the sky, and the river sang lullabies to the fields. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's stories, or at least thought they did. In a modest house on Maple Street lived Daniel Harper, a 42-year-old carpenter, and his 12-year-old daughter, Lily. Their home was simple, with creaky wooden floors and a porch that sagged under the weight of memories. It was just the two of them now, and had been for 3 years, since Lily's mother, Sarah, had passed away after a long battle with cancer. Daniel was a man of few words, his hands more eloquent than his tongue. He could carve a chair from a single block of oak, making it sturdy yet beautiful, but when it came to expressing his heart, he often stumbled. Lily, on the other hand, was a spark, curious, talkative, and full of dreams that spilled out like sunlight through a cracked window. She had her mother's eyes, bright and green, and her father's stubborn streak, which made their relationship both tender and tempestuous. Their story began on a crisp autumn evening, the kind where the air smells of burning leaves and possibility. Lily sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by colored pencils and a sketchbook. She was drawing a lantern, its glow illuminating a forest path. Daniel was at the kitchen table, sanding a small wooden box he'd made for a neighbor. The radio played softly, a country tune that neither of them paid much attention to. Dad, Lily said, not looking up from her drawing, do you think Mom's up there, watching us? Daniel's hand paused, the sandpaper hovering over the wood. He glanced at Lily, her head bent over her sketch, her dark hair falling like a curtain. He wanted to say something profound, something that would ease the ache they both carried, but all he managed was, I don't know, kiddo. Maybe. Lily's pencil stopped. She looked up, her eyes narrowing. You always say maybe. Can't you just know something for once? Daniel sighed, setting the sandpaper down. It's not that simple, Lily. I don't have all the answers. Well, I want to know, she said, her voice sharp. I want to know if she's okay, if she's proud of me, if she's still here, somehow. The room grew heavy with unspoken grief. Daniel stood and walked over to her, crouching beside her sketchbook. The lantern in her drawing was vivid, its light almost leaping off the page. That's beautiful, he said softly. You've got her gift, you know. She could draw anything and make it feel alive. Lily's expression softened, but only slightly. She used to tell me stories about lanterns, she said. How they guide people home when they're lost. Do you think that's true? Daniel hesitated. Sarah had been the storyteller, weaving magic with words. He was just a man who built things. But looking into Lily's eyes, he saw a need he couldn't ignore. Maybe it is, he said. Why don't we find out? Lily tilted her head, curious. How? Let's make a lantern, he suggested. A real one. We'll build it together, and when it's done, we'll light it and send it up to the sky, like a message to your mom. Lily's face lit up, the first genuine smile Daniel had seen in weeks. Really? You'll help me? Course I will, he said, ruffling her hair. But it's gonna take work. You up for it? She nodded eagerly, and in that moment, a spark of their old connection flickered to life. The next morning, they began their project. Daniel cleared space in his workshop, a cluttered shed behind the house filled with tools, wood scraps, and the faint smell of sawdust. Lily bounced on her toes, clutching her sketchbook with the lantern drawing. It has to look like this, she said, pointing to the intricate design: curved bamboo ribs, a delicate paper shade, and a flame that seemed to dance. Daniel raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious, kid. Bamboo's tricky, and paper's fragile. You sure you don't want something simpler? No way, Lily said, crossing her arms. Mom would want it to be special. He couldn't argue with that. They spent the morning gathering materials: bamboo from a local craft store, rice paper from an art supply shop, and wire for the frame. Daniel taught Lily how to measure and cut the bamboo, his calloused hands guiding her smaller ones. She was clumsy at first, her cuts uneven, but her determination was fierce. By noon, they had the skeleton of the lantern, a wobbly but promising frame. As they worked, Lily chattered about school, her friends, and the stories her mother used to tell. Daniel listened, nodding occasionally, but his mind wandered to Sarah. She'd been the glue that held them together, the one who knew how to bridge his silence and Lily's endless questions. Without her, he often felt like he was failing Lily, unable to give her the emotional warmth she craved. This lantern, he hoped, would be more than a project. It would be a way to show her he was trying. That evening, as they glued the rice paper to the frame, Lily asked, Dad, why don't you talk about Mom much? Daniel's hands stilled. He stared at the lantern, its shape starting to resemble Lily's drawing. It's hard, he admitted. Every time I think about her, it's like I'm losing her all over again. Lily was quiet for a moment, then said, I think about her all the time. It doesn't make me sad anymore. It makes me feel like she's still with me. Daniel looked at her, surprised by the wisdom in her young voice. You're stronger than me, kid, he said softly. She grinned. Maybe you just need a lantern to guide you, too. Over the next week, the lantern took shape. It wasn't perfect. The bamboo was slightly crooked, and the paper had a few wrinkles, but it was theirs. Lily painted it with delicate swirls of gold and blue, colors Sarah had loved. Daniel rigged a small burner inside, using a design he'd researched online to ensure it would float safely. They worked late into the evenings, the workshop glowing with the soft light of a single bulb, their laughter and occasional bickering filling the space. But not everything was smooth. One afternoon, Lily came home from school with a crumpled report card. Her grades had slipped, especially in math, which had always been her weakest subject. Daniel, tired from a long day at work, lost his patience. You've got to try harder, Lily, he said, tossing the report card onto the kitchen table. You can't just coast through school. I'm trying, she snapped, her eyes flashing. You don't get it, Dad. Math is hard, and you're never around to help me. I'm working, Lily, he said, his voice rising. I'm doing my best to keep a roof over our heads. You think I want to be gone all the time? Well, maybe if you were here, I wouldn't be failing, she shouted, storming to her room and slamming the door. Daniel stood there, his anger fading into guilt. He knew she was right. He'd been taking extra carpentry jobs to cover bills, leaving Lily to fend for herself after school. He thought of Sarah, who would have known exactly how to handle this, and felt the familiar weight of inadequacy. That night, he knocked on Lily's door. She was curled up on her bed, clutching a photo of her mother. I'm sorry, he said, sitting beside her. I haven't been there for you like I should. Lily didn't look at him, but her voice was small. I just miss her, Dad. And I miss you, too. You're here, but you're not. Her words cut deeper than any blade. Daniel took a deep breath. I'm gonna do better, Lily. Starting now. Let's make a deal. We finish the lantern, and then we tackle math together. Every night, no matter how tired I am. She glanced at him, skeptical. You promise? I promise, he said, holding out his pinky. She hooked hers around it, a small smile breaking through her tears. The lantern project became their anchor. They spent evenings in the workshop, sanding, painting, and talking. Daniel started coming home earlier, sitting with Lily at the kitchen table to wrestle with fractions and equations. She was stubborn, often frustrated, but he was patient, remembering how Sarah used to break things down into stories to make them easier for Lily to understand. He tried the same, turning numbers into adventures about knights and dragons, and slowly, Lily's confidence grew. One night, as they tested the lantern's burner in the backyard, Lily said, I think Mom would love this. She'd say it's like a star we made ourselves. Daniel smiled, watching the small flame flicker inside the lantern. She'd say you're the star, he said. Always shining, even when it's dark. Lily blushed, then hugged him tightly. It was the first time in months she'd done that, and Daniel held her close, feeling the warmth of their connection mend something inside him. The day of the lantern launch arrived, a clear, chilly night in late October. The town was holding its annual harvest festival, a lively event with bonfires, music, and food stalls. Lily and Daniel decided it was the perfect night to send their lantern into the sky. They carried it to a hill overlooking the festival, where the stars were bright and the air was filled with the scent of roasted chestnuts. Lily was nervous, clutching the lantern like it was a piece of her heart. What if it doesn't fly? She whispered. It'll fly, Daniel assured her, checking the burner one last time. We built it strong. Just like us. They lit the burner, the flame casting a golden glow across their faces. Lily held one side of the lantern, Daniel the other, and together they released it. For a moment, it wobbled, the flame flickering uncertainly. Then, slowly, it rose, climbing higher and higher until it was a tiny beacon against the night sky. Lily's eyes were wide, her breath catching. It's going to Mom, she said, her voice trembling with awe. Daniel wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Yeah, he said. It's telling her we're okay, that we're together. They stood there long after the lantern disappeared, the festival's music drifting up the hill. Lily leaned into him, and Daniel felt a peace he hadn't known in years. The lantern was more than a project, it was a promise, one they'd keep for each other and for Sarah. The months that followed were different. Daniel made good on his promise, helping Lily with her math until her grades improved. They kept building things together: birdhouses, bookshelves, even a treehouse in the backyard. Each project was a step toward healing, a way to bridge the gap Sarah's absence had left. Lily's laughter filled the house again, and Daniel found himself talking more, sharing stories of his own childhood and even memories of Sarah. One spring evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily pulled out her sketchbook. She'd drawn another lantern, this one surrounded by stars. For next year, she said, we'll make another one. And another after that. So Mom always knows we're here. Daniel nodded, his throat tight. Sounds like a plan, kiddo. And so, the lantern promise became their tradition, a light sent skyward each year, carrying love, memories, and